Good morning, tulips. Happy Friday. Okay, are you guys ready to start? Let's sing hello. Hello, cha cha cha. Hello, cha cha cha. Hello, and how are you? Cha cha cha. I'm fine, cha cha cha. I'm fine, cha cha cha. And I hope that you are too. Cha cha cha. So before we do anything, guys, I want to go over everything we've been learning this week about water, right? We've been talking about how water changes depending on the temperature. Remember, temperature means how hot or cold it is. So we're going to go over the 3 different states of matter or types of water, right? Our first one that we talked about a lot last week too was our liquid water, right? This is the kind we're going to find coming out of our faucet when we drink. We take a bath in this kind of water and we swim in this kind of water. And people and animals both drink liquid water. So this is our liquid. This is our first state of matter. Our second state is our solid. If you think like our ice cubes, right? They're a solid. So remember, our liquids take the shape of whatever container we put them in. Remember when I poured the liquid water into my cup, it took the shape of my cup and it was a cylinder or a circle shape. And then when I poured it into the square container, it became a square. So it changes shape depending on what type of container I put it in. But our solid doesn't change. Remember, my solid was an ice cube shaped. It was a cube. It was like a rectangle shape, and yet when I put it in the circle container, it stayed the same. It doesn't matter. It never changes shape. So we have our liquid and our solid. Now the third type was our gas, right? That's the kind that we had when I heated up the water on the stove, right? And it rose up as steam. That is our gas. So remember, we could change between the 3 different types. We can go from one to another if we change the temperature. If we want to go from a liquid to a solid, what do we have to do? We have to make it cold, right? We make it cold. To go from a liquid to a solid, we make it cold and we say it freezes. If I want to go back the other way and I want to go from a solid to a liquid, we have to make it what? We're going to go the opposite direction. We're going to make it warmer, right? A liquid to a solid to a liquid, we're going to make it melt by making it warmer. So it melts. We also can change into a gas, right? If we do what with our liquid? We're going to make it hot, okay? We're going to boil it or heat it up, and then our liquid turns into our gas. It turns into our steam. And then if I want to turn it back the other way, if I make our gas cooler or colder, I can turn it back into a liquid, which is our condensation. So those are our 3 different types. We also talked about the stuff that comes out of our clouds this week, which is one of our water cycle steps. What do we call that? What do we call the stuff that comes out of clouds? We call it precipitation. Can we say that? Precipitation is the stuff that comes out of clouds. So our first type is our liquid type. It's the kind we read our story about today. We're going to see a lot because spring starts tomorrow. So we're going to see this a lot more. Our first type is our rain. Our rain occurs in spring because it needs to be a little warmer. So this is the kind we're going to see in spring. So here's our rain. It's our liquid. Now, when it gets colder, like I told you guys, we actually had a little bit of this last night, very, very late when everyone else was asleep at like 3 o'clock this morning. We had this because it was very cold. So what happened? I said it was cold, so the water froze or turned into a solid. So it went from rain into snow when it became a solid because it was cold. So snow is our solid. And we have 2 other types of solids. We have our teeny tiny pieces of ice, which are called what? They're called sleet, right? Those are our tiny pieces of ice. We get them sometimes with our snow when it gets cold. And then our 4th type are those big chunks of ice, which, like I said, we get a lot of times during our thunderstorms in the summer when our hot and cold air crash together and they make hail, right? Which is our big chunks of ice. So rain, snow, sleet, and hail are our 4 types of precipitation. This is our liquid, and then these are our solids. And then the last thing we learned was putting all of that stuff together. We're going to put together everything we just learned to make our water cycle. So our water, we're going to start with liquid. Okay, here's like a lake or another body of water. It's a liquid, right? So then our sun heats up the water. That happens when we heat up liquid water, it turns into a gas. That gas goes up, up, up into the air as water vapor, and we call that evaporation. Can we say that? Evaporation is turning our liquid water into gas, and it goes up into the sky. So then what happens? Our gas turns back into a liquid when it gets colder, and it makes little drops of water that stick together and stick together and stick together, and they make our cloud. And this step starts with a C, just like cloud does. It's condensation. Can we say that? Condensation makes our cloud. So remember, as the drops stick together and stick together, it makes the clouds heavier and heavier until they can't hold the water anymore. And then the water falls back out. And it comes back out as either rain, snow, sleet, or hail. And we call that what? It's what we just learned. It's our precipitation. Can we say that? Precipitation is what comes out of the clouds. Then our precipitation goes down, and it goes back down into the water, which then heats up, turns into a gas, which then condenses into a cloud, which turns into precipitation, which goes down to the water, which then heats up and turns into a gas, which goes into the cloud, which goes down to precipitation, and it keeps going around and around and around and around and around and around and around, and it doesn't stop, right? That's why we call it a cycle, because it just goes around in a circle and never stops. So this is our water cycle. So what I wanted to do with you guys one more time is sing our water cycle song, because today's the last day we're going to talk about it. Well, I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit next week, but today's the last day we're learning just about it. So can you guys help me sing our song one more time? So remember, we're going to make a big circle, because water travels in a big circle or a cycle. Ready? Water travels in a cycle, yes it does, yes it does. Water travels in a cycle, yes it does, yes it does. It goes up as evaporation, forms clouds as condensation, comes down as precipitation. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Good job, guys. So we're going to read a story today that has to do with the water cycle. It's called Water Up, Down, and All Around. So just like we just said, it goes around and around. So this book is all about the water cycle. Now you can see on the front here, we have our liquid water, or the kind of water we drink that comes out of the faucet. So the water cycle, remember, is telling us where this water comes from. Where do raindrops come from? Plop, plop, splash. Raindrops trickle down your face. Once these raindrops sailed in a cloud. They roared in a river and crashed on the seashore. These raindrops have circled around the whole world. The water cycle. Raindrops are made of water that has been used over and over and over again since the earth began. They are part of the Earth's water cycle. So remember, when we look at our Earth, we looked at our globe in class, right? All the blue stuff is water. So the Earth is made up of mostly water, okay? The green stuff is the land, but most of it is water. So this water travels all over the Earth, and it's been doing so since the Earth first started. So remember, we said we might even be drinking water that dinosaurs drank. The water cycle begins as water flows down from mountain lakes. Water also springs up from within the earth. Remember, we said our groundwater is what waters the plants, and it also is what we drink. From mountains and springs, water runs into rivers and into oceans. It says, fun fact, water covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface. So that's all the blue stuff here. Sunlight heats up nature's water until it evaporates. Remember, evaporate means turning from liquid water into gas. When water evaporates, it goes up, 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 and rises into the air. Heat turns water into very tiny drops called water vapor. Water vapor is floating in the air all around you, but you can't see it. Just like remember we said we can't see the oxygen we're breathing now, but it's a gas, but it's all around us. Water vapor cools off as it rises into the air. Cools means it gets colder. As water droplets cool, as water vapor cools, the tiny drops get bigger and bigger. The drops can now be seen as fog or mist. Watch the clouds sail through the sky. Clouds are made up of water vapor. Fun fact, you can see water vapor inside too. Steam is the vapor that rises when water boils on the stove. And if you look here, their little clouds look like they're shaped like different things, like a butterfly and a fish. That's very silly. When clouds brush against cold air, the tiny drops of water vapor get even bigger. The water vapor in the clouds condenses and turns into rain. If it's cold enough, the water vapor may freeze and turn into snowflakes. Water vapor condenses in other places too. In the early morning, you might see dew glittering on a lawn or a field. Water vapor in the warm air has condensed onto the cold grass. When it's cold outside, frost sparkles on your window. Frost is actually frozen dew. So where does the water go? When snow melts, remember it turns from a solid into a liquid, dewdrops evaporate into the sky and turn into clouds. Rain flows into streams, rushes into oceans, or sinks silently into the ground. Water can get trapped in mountain ice. Did you guys know that only 1% of Earth's water is good for drinking? Most of the water, 97%, is actually salty sea or ocean water that can't be drunk, and the rest is ice. So how is water used along the way? We're actually going to talk about this a lot next week. What do we use water for? Deer drink from forest lakes. Fish swim through ocean depths. Corn and wheat grow tall as their roots suck water up from the ground. You need water to live too. You fill up your glass, jump in the pool, and rinse your soapy hands with water. Earth's water is used over and over again. You might be drinking water that people or animals drank thousands of years ago. Ugh, yucky. Water can become too dirty for drinking or swimming. We call that pollution. That's not good. Unhealthy things can wash into water from factories, farms, lawns, and even toilets. That is why cities have places to clean the water that people drink. So here's the problem. If we're making the water dirty, well, not only do we drink it and animals drink it, lots of animals make it their home. So if we make it really dirty, then the fish have nowhere to live. So that's not a good thing. That's why we never throw garbage in the water. Not so fun fact. Wild animals don't have a way to clean their water. So it's our job as people to make sure we keep their home clean because they have no way to clean it themselves. So if we make it dirty, we're going to make all the animals sick. So that's why we got to make sure we keep the water clean. Round and round we go. Plop, plop, splash. Rain dribbles down your boots. Fun fact, water dribbles inside of you too. Your thirsty body is actually made of 2/3 water, which I know a lot of you guys told me that already. You know, our body's made up of mostly water. Here's the water cycle. So here we start at the bottom, right? We have our liquid water. The sun then heats it up, it evaporates. Then it cools down and the gas turns into little water droplets which stick together, which form clouds as condensation. And then that falls down back as rain, as precipitation, and then the whole thing starts all over again. That's why we call it a cycle, because it goes in a circle. Fun fact, liquid, solid, and gas. Water has 3 forms. We know that already. It could be liquid like the wet water you drink. It could be a solid like the hard ice cubes, or it could be gas like the hot steam that rises from a cooking pot. Water changes from a liquid to a solid or a gas at different temperatures. So our liquid water, when we turn it cold or freeze it, turns into a solid. Our liquid water can also turn into a gas when we heat it up and it turns into steam. Wonderful water is actually the only thing in the world that can change naturally into a liquid, solid, or a gas. The end. So that is it for our water cycle. When we come back on Monday, guys, we're going to keep talking about water, but we're going to talk more about what we use water for, what animals use water for, and what plants use water for. So I hope you guys have an awesome weekend, and I will see you guys back in school on Monday. Bye.